So I feel at this point, all that I can do is explain to whoever cares to listen, because this is going to be a long video, about why I don't view my politics as beliefs or as opinions. I view them as a position I and millions of other people have been forced into because of what we've seen, because of what I've seen in person in front of my eyes. And I could do that for hours. I could talk about all the things that I have seen throughout my life for hours that have put me in the position that I'm in now. But the earliest that I'll go back for time's sake is 2020. During the lockdown, I was living with a friend. Both of our jobs had been shut down for the time being. And we were at the Black Lives Matter protests in our town that I still live in every single day that they happened. We had a wagon, we had water, we had tampons, pads, medical supplies, all that kinds of stuff. Because it's damn near 100 degrees while this is going on, as I know a lot of you remember. And the protest route became the town square to the jailhouse and back to protest people who were plucked off of the street for peacefully protesting and placed in jail. And as we are marching to the jailhouse one day, there is a man standing 20 feet off to the side of the road, shirtless, holding probably a 7-inch knife. And he's just smiling, and he's waiting for somebody to come confront him. And there are police everywhere. The firefighters have their garage up. They're sitting in lawn chairs watching us go by like we're a parade. And it was probably about 2 days after that a curfew was put in place. And we realized that we had to leave on time for the curfew because one of the girls in our group was a Black woman, and that they were strategically plucking out organizers and Black people from the crowd and placing them in jail. So we had to leave. We had to obey that curfew. And then a few days after that, we end up all convening at the Dallas protest, which started in front of City Hall in a public plaza. And we did the protest route, and I remember everywhere you looked, there was an undercover somewhere in the crowd. And I remember, despite what a lot of people will say, that there were pallets of bricks placed on the sidewalk along that protest route that nobody touched. And the second we got back to that public plaza, we walked back to our car, and there was probably at least 200 riot cops lined up across the street ready to go. And by the time we had gotten back on the freeway, there were videos on Twitter of the entire block being completely clouded out by tear gas, people being pulled onto the ground and beaten by batons, taken away in vans, taken to the county jail. I then remember after the lockdown was lifted and I had to go back to work, I'm working at a consignment clothing store. We were at that point mandated by the franchise owner that we had to enforce a mask policy. And nearly every other day, somebody came in and screamed in my face about that and told me that I was a liar and that I was a piece of shit and yelled at my coworkers and leaned across the counter for enforcing a rule that my manager, that we all had to do at that time. Everybody had to do it. I had reports made about me that I had hit people, that I had punched customers for not wearing masks. Multiple investigations ensued. Of course I did not do that. And then I remember I'm 21 and I'm beginning my transition, and this wave of anti-trans rhetoric is sweeping through the country. And I remember making plans one day with some new friends to go hang out in Dallas, and then we get online and find out that that day there's actually a Nazi rally going on outside of Mr. a nightclub in the neighborhood, and there's just Nazis walking the streets, nobody is stopping them, self-identified white supremacist Nazis. And then we can flash forward a few years later, on the same square, in the same town that I still live in, I stood there the day that Roe versus Wade was overturned. And that wasn't even a protest. They placed a megaphone on the ground, and for hours, people took turns coming up and talking about how scared they were, and about their own miscarriages, and about their own abortions, and about their fear for their own children, and crying out to their representatives to listen to them. I remember the first freeze in 2020, the first big freeze, completely shut down my entire town. Every single road was covered in ice. And I remember us talking about how many of the unhoused people in our community, there is a large unhoused population in this community, talking about how many of them were gone now because of that. And then we can fast forward a few years later. I now have a bigger platform. I start working with a few reproductive rights organizations. I go to a dinner for the Texas Equal Access Fund, and I listen to people who work in reproductive health care talking about people showing up to their clinics with weapons, having to have security guards to guide patients into the clinic while protesters scream outside day and night every single day for years and years and years. I remember these people talking about the harrowing work they were having to do to get people to other states to receive the care that they needed. And then I remember traveling to Austin and listening to a group of women that I've now met twice talk in person about, one woman spoke about how her care was prolonged and she was denied the care she needed for so long that there came a day where her insides felt like pudding, felt like jello. She could barely walk. She almost died. She was internally bleeding so bad that it was just loose in her body. And I've now heard that same speech twice in person. And it was not just her. It was a group of women talking about the horrific things that they experienced because they had ectopic pregnancies, they had miscarriages, they had unviable pregnancies that they could not get care for. And I saw all of those things happen in person. And again, I could talk about all of these things for hours and hours and hours. And then I am told that we have a difference of opinions. We have a difference of beliefs. It's never felt that way for me. And I know a lot of you have seen the same exact things that I saw, whether you saw them on your phone, on your Twitter feed, whether you were there too. And it kind of blows my mind how we continue to talk about it like a difference of opinion. Because in all of those instances where I stood in my own community and watched these horrors unfold on people who lived within a mile of me, it didn't feel like differences of opinion. It feels every single time like people screaming to be listened to, people screaming to be treated equitably, and those cries for help continually being met with systemic violence. And commentators making jokes about the death of Trayvon Martin and about Breonna Taylor and about George Floyd, who we were there protesting for, who we were there having moments of silence for. Those deaths, the deaths of so many women because of reproductive rights care not being given to them, those deaths being memeified and justified and debated about as if there's a possibility that those deaths were deserved. That doesn't feel like a matter of opinion to me. I don't really know what else I can say. A part of the reason that I've changed so much of my approach to talking about these issues, and that I try not to do much beyond giving people who agree with me active things that they can do to contribute to a cause, is because I don't think this crowd talking about beliefs and opinions does care about the opinions of other people. I don't think you truly understand what's happening when you see it. And I don't think you hear people when they are crying for help. And that's all I can say. And I know this is a very long video. I don't know what else I can do.